health challenges and helping them and their families find meaning and ultimately heal through storytelling. Please welcome Delphine Liston, Annie Brewster, Jonathan Adler, and our featured storytellers, Brett Swanland, and we'll hear from Emmett Hyman.
Thank you so much. My name's Annie Brewster. I'm standing here with my colleague, Jonathan Adler from Health Story Collaborative. And we're going to keep it really brief because we're excited to get to the heart of the program, which is to hear from Brett and Emmett and hear their amazing stories. But just for the sake of context, we wanted to give you a few minutes of background. So I myself am a physician. I work at Mass General in internal medicine. I'm also a patient. I've been living with multiple sclerosis since 2001. And Health Story Collaborative really grew out of my lived experience navigating healthcare, both as a patient and as a healthcare provider. And really, I'd say, more as a patient, learning that when we have a life-changing event, whether that's getting a diagnosis of a chronic illness or having a trauma of any sort, we have to shift our stories and integrate that event into our lives. And how do we do that? So that's how I came to storytelling as something that really helped me to move forward in my life and motivated me ultimately to start an organization to help other individuals who are navigating such challenges to move forward and to use storytelling as a tool to do that. So stories, it really grew out of my sense of what feels broken in the healthcare system today, which is the short version, not enough time and space for quality relationship building, for listening, for storytelling, for connecting. And so really our main goal at Health Story Collaborative is to deliberately create space for that sharing. And so it's healing for both the storytellers and for the listeners too. And I think that the stories really transcend the healthcare issue and really are a way for all of us to connect in this world where there's a lot of divisiveness and to really remember our shared humanity. So I'll stop there for a second, pass it to John so he can say a bit, and then I'll tell you a bit more about how things will run tonight.
Hi everyone, it is such an honor to be with you here tonight. Thank you so much for inviting us. So I'm Jonathan Adler. I'm a clinical psychologist and a psychology professor. My research focuses on the ways in which we develop a sense of self by telling the stories of our lives. And for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been working explicitly with folks who acquire some kind of major physical disability in adulthood and how our identity continues to develop in light of that. So it's really, really a pleasure to be here with all of you. If anyone here wants to share your story as part of the research program, just send me an email. As Annie said, the process of telling your story is healing, but the process of receiving someone else's story is also healing. So actually, all of you have a really important role here tonight. The work that Annie and I do is grounded in the robust, thriving science of narrative and its relationship with well-being, but you won't see any of that science on stage tonight. We're really here to foreground people's individual stories. But you play a really important role in that. Stories don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in the world. They exist between people. They are what knit us together as individuals and weave us together as communities. And so we're so delighted to have you participate with us tonight in this, what we call a healing story session.
Thank you. So I want to say thank you, first of all, to SCI Boston for having us. I'm really listening and in awe of what you all do, and it really is so grounded in stories, like thinking about the peer mentorship program that's hearing people's stories and really helping people to feel more connected and less alone. So we're really excited to hear these two wonderful storytellers tonight. And I will say that it is a gift to all of us that they're giving us. It's not easy what they have gone through, this process of really digging into their stories and working on them and writing them. It takes a lot of engagement and energy and emotional processing. So it's really a gift to all of us, and we're excited to share that with you. So how we're going to run tonight is we're going to first hear from Brett, And then we're going to transition immediately to our second storyteller, Emmett, and then we'll all come back up at the end and have a little bit of time for Q&A if time allows. So your job, audience, is really, as John said, to open yourself up to this experience and to recognize that you are a part of this, that when Brett and Emmett share their story with you, how you receive it will shape their stories going forward, and how you receive it will shape your stories going forward, and we're all in this web of stories. And so I encourage you just to open yourself up and to think about what resonates, whether you have a spinal cord injury or not. We have all faced challenges, and there will be a lot of themes that resonate. And so just be present, remember what a gift these storytellers are giving to us, and that is all. So we're going to turn it over to Brett, and then we'll come back and hear from Emmett. Thank you, Brett. Take it away.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brett Smallman, for those of you who don't know me, and for those of you who do, well, you know what you're getting into, so strap in. I stand before you here tonight, well, I sit before you here tonight, to share my journey with you. Trust me, the humor is not lost on me at a table of fools day. I've been a fool several thousand times in my life, but I've been called a lot worse, so that's all right. First, I'd like to thank SCI Boston United Spinal Association for giving me the opportunity to share my story with you, and Health Story Collaborative for helping me write my story. I'm no public speaker, but perhaps what I share with you tonight might motivate others living with a spinal cord injury to not be fearful, to put themselves out there and never give up on themselves. I've always been an active person and someone who likes a challenge. Growing up, I used to play a wide variety of sports, never much of an all-star, but always a really good role player. Skiing, snowboarding, basketball. One pickup basketball game in my early 30s, I missed about 6 to 8 wide open shots or layups. Frustrated with myself, I said, damn, why can't I get any of these shots to fall? One of my opponents, one of the more talented ball players on the court, laughed at me. With a smug, arrogant grin on his face, he said, because you have no ball control. I guess that was all I needed to hear to get my head in the game. The next game, I hit every shot I took and scored 12 out of my team's 21 points. I promptly left after that because I was never going to top that performance. At the age of 29, I enrolled myself in show and brew classes. In a world filled with Hollywood theatrics and impractical styles, it was refreshing to find something richly steeped in historical Okinawan karate tradition. Statistics show that 1 out of 100 students reach their first degree black belt, but only 1 out of 1,000 reach their second degree. 3 years ago, I was just a few months away from my third. My career started when I decided to leave college after a year and a half at Plymouth State University in New Hampshire. In my youth, I had been told that a college degree was necessary to get ahead in this world, but school wasn't for me. I wanted to make a living working with my hands. I went to work for a small mom-and-pop plumbing and heating company, but soon ended up working for a National Grid gas company. It was exciting and meaningful work. I didn't mind working in single-digit temperatures, jackhammering through 3 feet of frost, or the oppressively hot summer days. There's nothing quite as exhilarating as having 60 to 90 pounds of gas pressure blowing in your face while wearing a fire suit and a full fitness respirator. I love being outside every day, busting balls with my crew. My coworkers used to bust me up because on the average summer day, I'd sweat so much that I'd go through 3 shirts. They'd say, your wife must hate you with all that laundry. My wife always said that my laundry would break the washing machine. But I'll have you know that washing machine is still working. I mean, a lot of dirt and pebbles made their way into my pockets from working in a trench all day. I was about 6 months away from being a crew leader before my accident. Not everyone out there truly loves their job, but I did. And to have that taken away from you is a really bitter pill to swallow. At my core, I'm a family man. My beautiful wife, Jennifer, is the strongest, most supportive, and loving partner I am blessed to navigate this life with her. I met Jennifer 21 years ago in the dingy basement of my fraternity across the beer pong table. It almost pains me to admit that she beat me, but we'll just chalk that up to the 2 extra semesters of practice she had. This year we'll be celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary, but we've been together for more than half our lives. We've built quite a life together and have 2 wonderful children, Logan, who is 11, and Kayla, who is 8. On June 9th, 2020, life as I knew it changed forever. At the height of the pandemic, I found myself going a bit stir-crazy. The only social interaction I had was with my coworkers. My dojo was shut down, so I spent most afternoons after work running on the treadmill, lifting weights at home. Once spring rolled around, a friend suggested I take a mountain biking with him. I really enjoyed it. It got me outside with people. On that day in June, I met my friends Zach and Dan after work in my hometown of North Kingstown, Rhode Island, to hit the mountain biking trails. The ride was enjoyable, and everything was going great, until it wasn't. My friends were a bit ahead of me, and as I crested a small hill, looking up at them in the distance, suddenly my front tire dropped. I went over the handlebars. I was pile-driven into the ground. I never lost consciousness, but as I lay face down in the dirt, I knew instantly that I was gravely injured. I immediately told my friend Zach not to move me. He dug out a little hole under my mouth to give me water. My friend Dan called 911 and rode out to the nearby parking lot to meet the paramedics and lead them to me. The paramedics put me in a neck brace or on board and carried me through the woods to the ambulance. Looking up at the green canopy above me, I was less concerned for myself than I was worried that my selfish desire to go mountain biking had put the well-being and stability of my household in jeopardy. My wife immediately ran to the hospital, but was not allowed in the ER because of COVID. Finally, a nurse snuck her in. I apologized profusely through tears, and in the most loving way possible, she basically said, "Shut up," and assured me I did nothing wrong. My first week in the ICU is a haze because I was heavily sedated. My injury had left me at C8 quadriplegic. I also split my C1 vertebrae in half, but luckily it did not hit my spinal cord at this level, so they put a bracket around it and fused my neck from C3 to T2. They also performed a tracheotomy because I had trouble breathing on my own and put a feeding tube into my stomach. I vaguely remember the first time I FaceTimed with my wife. I couldn't talk and could barely move my arms, let alone grip a marker with grip tape to write. Luckily, one of the nurses was really good at lip reading. Once I left the hospital and went to quality rehab, they pulled the trach and the feeding tube, and I was able to eat and, more importantly, drink on my own. I was also becoming more functional with my hands, which made things much better. Visitors were restricted because of COVID. The hardest part by far was not seeing my children. But once a few weeks in, I was allowed to visit them in the conference room. I was still weak in a power chair, but tears of joy came to me instantly. They both climbed on my lap and hugged me as tight as they could. They told me how much they missed me and how much they loved me, and I told them the same. Seeing them gave me a bit of motivation to stay strong and keep fighting. I vowed to persevere and make them all proud of me. Without them, there's no story to tell. I really hit the jackpot with the staff that were assigned to me at rehab. The 2 most impactful were my physical therapist, Jillian, and my occupational therapist, Nicole, who are both here with me tonight. I won't divulge which one dropped me on my head the first week. But I was fine, and as she claimed, it builds character. At a time when I was extremely isolated, they were the only people I had to talk to and confide in. We basically laughed through it every session, though of course I had my grumpy and mopey days. They made it fun. Nicole was always the sympathetic ear, assuring me that there was still so much I could do and accomplish, like driving and adaptive sports. At the time I rolled my eyes and didn't believe her. She is wise beyond her years. Jillian and I had a lot in common, both being close in age, our love for 80s and 90s music. She was truly my comic relief, usually at her expense. Sorry. I had several hiccups while at Spalding, including frequent UTIs and C. diff, but I never missed a session, even though these weakened me greatly. I'm pretty sure one session I completely fell asleep while Nicole was stretching and massaging my hands. I always had candy in my room. One day, Jillian witnessed me take a handful of Skittles and was appalled that I didn't separate them into flavors. This resulted in a week-long poll amongst patients and hospital staff on how to eat Skittles. I won, and Jillian's punishment was to eat a handful of all the flavors at once. Probably one of the most hilarious and dramatic moments in Spalding history. I have the video if anyone wants to see it. As my discharge date approached, Nicole mentioned to Jillian that I'd be really fun to have drinks with. When the day came, we exchanged numbers. A month later, I was there for an appointment with Jennifer, and we met Jillian and Nicole for dinner and drinks afterwards. After that, we started doing monthly FaceTime cocktail hours. I'd update them on what I was doing, they'd help me find resources, and we just laugh and enjoy each other's company. For my 1-year anniversary, they planned with my wife to come and surprise me. It meant so much to me. When they were leaving, my brother thanked them and commented that it was remarkable how much they cared for their patients. They told him I was the only patient who had ever warranted such an occasion. This revelation turned me into a sobbing mess. I was so happy. They had to be my therapist, but they chose to be my friends, and that meant the world to me. Before I came home, my family worked tirelessly to prepare my house. My mother and my friend Barry from college started GoFundMe's to help with the exorbitant cost of making my house accessible. I was truly humbled by the amount of support I received. My parents, my wife, and my brother had my bathroom completely redone, had a ramp installed, and many other things to make life easier. My brother Corey and his girlfriend Caroline came to the house all the time, play with the kids, and keep Jen's spirits up. The adjustment to coming home was a difficult one. My spasticity ramped up, and in the beginning I suffered UTIs frequently. I was also battling with a lot of self-doubt and anxiety over how life was going to be. I was worried there'd be no place for me back at work, now that I had been stripped of all the physical attributes that helped me build a career. I had crippling anxiety thinking I wouldn't be able to provide for my family, and I worried that I would never again have a reason to feel proud or accomplished. Some days I just wouldn't get out of bed. Being home alone while the kids were in school and Jen was working was hard. My thoughts went to dark places, and I often ended up crying by myself. But then I started going to SCI Boston Zoom meetings, and it was a relief. I spent at least the first 4 meetings in tears. At the very first one, I shared that I was worried how my kids would perceive me, and if they'd be embarrassed by me. The group assured me that they would become my biggest helpers and would love me even more, knowing they could have lost me. They weren't wrong. Logan leads with his can-do attitude. Every time I lament not being able to help him physically with sports and karate, he tells me that we will find a way. And Kayla is my little helper. When we go grocery shopping, she pushes the cart. And because we're both vertically challenged, she climbs up on my lap in the chair and grabs items out of reach. My kids never cease to amaze me. I soon decided that sitting around feeling sorry for myself is counterproductive, and that I was going to do everything I could to experience all that life has to offer. I decided to show my kids that even though life can be cruel and throw curveballs, it's how you respond that defines who you are. I started going to an adaptive gym as well as outpatient physical therapy and worked out multiple times a week, usually getting rides from my parents or friends. This inspired me to begin adaptive driving lessons 3 months after returning home, so that I could drive myself places and help transport the kids to their various activities. My father built me a countertop so I could start cooking meals for the family. Once I got back on the road that March with an adaptive van the fundraisers helped me purchase, I wasn't going to let anything stop me. While the kids were still in school, I constantly signing up for adaptive sports was spalding. I did everything: tennis, kayaking, cycling, mountain biking, archery, and I even discovered there was a way to golf again. What made all these experiences more rewarding was having someone in a similar situation to share them with. A few months after I had been home, I was at physical therapy, and there was a young woman rolled in. At the time, I was the only wheelchair user in this time slot, so it was nice to see someone else in my situation. This young lady's name is Faith. At first, we didn't talk much, but one day when we were leaving, her casters got caught in a crack at the bottom of the ramp and sent her flying out onto the wet snow. My dad helped her back into her chair and promptly went in to berate everyone that an accessible place wasn't so accessible. To my surprise, she showed up in the newly injured group 2 days later. Little did I know that this was a result of an unbreakable bond and a truly special friendship. We're separated by approximately 10 vertebrae and a whopping 18 years. That spring, we both volunteered to work with physical therapy students at the University of Rhode Island. As the only wheelchair users, we were in a room by ourselves, joking around and basically competing with one another. Our relationship is a bit unconventional because if it weren't for our paralysis, when else would an almost 4-year-old man be hanging out with a young lady in her early 20s? But let's be honest, conventional's boring. We have so much more in common than the chair. We both love being active and aren't afraid to try new things. We share the same twisted sense of humor and an uncanny ability to read each other's minds. Whenever we're in a large group, and no matter what the topic of discussion, or if we're out somewhere having lunch, people watching, we just look at each other. We know exactly what the other's thinking. And we just laugh. We've done so much together: mountain biking, dozens of golf outings, even wheelchair football at Gillette Stadium. She even loaned me her smart drive while mine was being repaired for 7 months. I guess I'm lucky her parents always taught her to take care of the elderly, as she put it. Seeing all that she does, being a full-time student and working part-time, really inspired me to pursue my return to the workforce more aggressively. She's like the little sister I never had, though she never passes up an opportunity to remind me that I'm old enough to be her father. The last leg of my journey has been returning to work. I've had the benefit for working for National Grid Gas Company for the last 14 years. You may not like their rates, and neither do I. And no, I don't get a discount. But they're a wonderful company to work for. who values the knowledge and experience of their employees. Finally, after a lot of hard work and persistence, I returned to work on December 1st, 2022. This was the thing I wanted most since my injury, to be able to once again provide for my family and make everyone around me proud. It's been a bit of a learning curve going from a trench in the street to a desk in an office, but I'm learning quickly and also have the benefit of seeing my former coworkers every day. Going forward, I always strive to make my family and friends proud of me. I'll never let this chair define who I am. I believe with the right mindset, you can always find ways to overcome physical limitations. That's my brother. I often reflect on the words of retired Navy SEAL David Goggins, who always preaches mind over matter and mental toughness. It won't always go your way, he said. Don't focus on what you think you deserve. Take aim on what you're willing to earn. Simply surviving a hardship allows you to continue, but in an impaired state. Recovering from a hardship sends you back to your baseline, meaning no progress has really been made. To thrive, you have to learn from that hardship. I'd like to think that I've learned a lot and will continue to learn. Thanks for listening, everyone. Enjoy your evening.